inside joke there.
Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, June 27th, 2024. It is 5:30 p.m. and the Salem Area Mass Transit District Board of Directors meeting is now called to order. And I want to hit the gavel. Will the clerk of the board please note attendance for a quorum? And I believe, is Director Navarro online? Okay, so we have Director Navarro attending online, and Director Duncan is excused. I will now pass it over to General Manager Pollock for our safety moment.
Right, thank you. So in recognition that we will be celebrating Independence Day next week and that summer is synonymous with barbecues, parades, and fireworks, the National Safety Council advises everyone to enjoy fireworks at public displays conducted by professionals and not to use any fireworks at home. They may be legal, but they are not safe. Every year, thousands of people are injured badly enough to require medical treatment after fireworks-related incidents, with many of the injuries to children and young adults. While the majority of these incidents are due to amateurs attempting to use professional-grade homemade, or other illegal fireworks or explosives, less powerful devices like small firecrackers and sparklers can also cause significant injuries. So with that, if you do choose to use legal fireworks, I have a few fireworks safety tips for you. Never allow young children to handle fireworks. Older children should use them only under close adult supervision. Never use fireworks while impaired by drugs or alcohol. Anyone using fireworks or standing nearby should wear protective eyewear. Never hold lighted fireworks in your hands. Never point or throw fireworks at another person. Only light one device at a time and maintain a safe distance after lighting. Never ignite devices in a container. Soak your spent and unused fireworks in water for a few hours before discarding. And keep a bucket of water nearby to fully extinguish fireworks that don't go off. Better yet, grab a blanket and a patch of lawn, kick back, and let the experts handle the fireworks shows. And I would want to also remind people that sparklers are dangerous. Every year, young children can be found along parade routes and at festivals with sparklers in their hand. But sparklers are a lot more dangerous than most people think. Consider using safer alternatives such as glow sticks, confetti poppers, or colored streamers. And with that, have a happy Independence Day.
Thank you very much. All right. Now we'll move on. Do we have any announcements or changes to the agenda? Okay. No presentations. So we will move on to public comment. Do we have any public comment signups? Oh, yes. I would like to note that we have all received an email, and I do believe that our general manager will be following up on this matter, and I might even have a report a little bit later.
Sure.
Okay. So that will move us on to our budget hearing. So now we have time designated for members of the public to testify before the board on the approved budget as shown in LB1, or programs within the budget. So we'll open up that budget hearing. Do we have deliberation of budget hearing?
So you want to bang the gavel and open the public hearing?
All right.
And we'll ask our CFO, Denise LaRue, and our Budget Committee Secretary, Nick Forte, to please come forward for their presentation.
Good evening. I have the pleasure this evening to introduce Nick Forte, the Vice Chair of the Budget Committee.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So I'm the Vice Chair of the Budget Committee, so on behalf of the Budget Committee, and Kathy Link was not able to be here tonight, so I'm in her stead. If I could read a letter to you, I'd appreciate that. So this is to the President Pressey and members of the board. I'm pleased to present to you the Budget Committee's recommendation to adopt the fiscal year 2025 budget for the Salem Area Mass Transit District. The committee met on May 7th, 2024 to review the proposed budget. Thank you to General Manager Alan Pollock and district staff for all their hard work in preparing and reviewing the proposed budget with us. The committee voted unanimously to approve the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $147,575,847 in taxes at a rate of 0.7609 per $1,000 of assessed value for operating purposes in the general fund. The budget has appropriated funds of $110,638,187 and a reserve fund of $36,937,660. It will fund the continuation of modernization of equipment and processes, including CITS, Dell Web fence and exterior security upgrades, electric bus and charging infrastructure, in-ground lifts, lift bus replacements, transit signal priority, and South Salem Transit Center. Additional items to be funded in the FY 2025 approved budget include farebox system replacement, cybersecurity intrusion detection equipment, KTC vehicle entry control, stops and shelters for local Route 22, and various additional positions. The district is moving forward on a strong financial basis and will be able to continue to provide world-class customer service in the coming years. We all appreciate your commitment and hard work. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of the budget process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, now that we are in the budget hearing, do we have any members of the public that would like to provide comments on the budget?
No one online.
No one online? Okay. So I think we can move on to our deliberation of budget hearing? Yeah?
Close the public hearing.
Oh, well, we closed the public hearing. I think I've hit the gavel more tonight than I have in a year. And we'll move on into our action item. Yeah?
Right? Yes.
Cool. I'll
CFO LaRue, present the staff report.
Good evening, President Enam Host-Pressey and members of the board. I am here tonight to ask for adoption of resolution number 2024-01 for the FY 2024-25 budget, making the appropriations accordingly and imposing and categorizing the taxes. In accordance with Oregon State Budget Law, the Budget Committee reviewed and approved the FY 2024 budget on May 7th, 2024, for a total appropriation of all funds of $110,638.187 and an unappropriated total amount of $36,937,660 for a total approved budget of $147,575,847. Following approval by the Budget Committee Chair Kathy Lincoln asks that the board set the budget hearing. On June 3rd, 2024, the budget summary and notice of a public hearing were published on the district website and in the local newspaper on June 10th, 2024, as required by law. The financial impact is the proposed budget in the amount of $147,575,847 and a tax rate of $0.7609 per 1,000 of assessed value. The committee recommends the board adopt resolution number 2024-01, thereby adopting the FY 2024-25 budget and imposing and categorizing property taxes.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments? No? Okay, yes, Director Laura Midkiff.
Thank you, President. I just have a comment, which is to thank my colleagues here on the, I guess it would be the committee, the Budget Committee, for their hard work and for staff for their dedication, the thoroughness and care with which that process played out. I appreciate it. It was my first budget process with the agency, and it went well, and I'm feeling good about where we're headed as an agency. So thank you for all the energy and thoughtfulness.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, Director Carney?
This question is really probably just out of curiosity and for my own benefit. I'm looking at attachment C, which is the budget summary, because I was thinking to myself, they're required to publish these things in the local paper and it costs a bunch of money. I wonder how long this darn budget summary has to be. I'm sure it went to the right place, but that was the state of Wisconsin, County of Brown, that we contacted for the Statesman Journal publication.
I think that's where they're based.
They're owned by big corporations on our.
Yeah, there's so many different addresses on this Gannett page. There's Cincinnati, Ohio, state of Wisconsin, County of Brown. Okay, that is discouraging. I wish they were owned locally, but all else looks good to me.
Yeah, I think they got bought out a couple of years ago.
But if I could just state for the record, well, that is the home of it. It was published in the Statesman Journal, the local.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Director Holmstrom?
Does the chair entertain a motion?
Yes, absolutely.
Make my motion here. I move the board adopt resolution number 2024-01 to adopt the fiscal year 2024-25 budget, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes.
All right, we have a motion from Director Holmstrom
Second.
and a second from Director Davidson. Any discussion on the motion? Director Davidson?
I just want to flag that as perhaps a curiosity that we adopt a tax rate in this, which is a vestige of a pre-property tax blow up of the 1990s. And so I just would like to point out that we are still, we have the vestigial tailbone of a functioning property tax system still in some of our documents. And it's just a curiosity I wanted to point out, despite the severe limitations of our current property tax system. Thank you.
All righty. All those in favor of approving resolution number 2024-01, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. This moves us on to item 8. We've been in this meeting for 13 minutes. We're already on item 8. I think it just goes to show how productive we are. So consent calendar. Will anyone like to pull something from the consent calendar? Director Holmstrom.
Yeah, I'm about to slow us down a little bit here. So I would like to pull item B1 from the consent calendar, please.
All right, so we will pull item B1. Do we have a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar without item B1?
I move to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item B1.
Okay,
Seconded.
motion and a second. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Seeing none, that passes unanimously. All right, so we'll hand it over for discussion of item B1. And,
I'll read the staff report and then we can open up for questions.
okay, that sounds great.
All right, so for many years, actually since 1999, the district has partnered with the United Way of Mid-Willamette Valley for a bus pass program designed to assist people in need, transportation need, with the ability to get to and from new employment, to and from medical appointments, and social service visits, and other needs. The way the program is designed is, if the board takes action tonight, we will donate 7,500 day passes to the United Way, and then they have an internal program with their member agencies. So the United Way has a series of member agencies as part of the United Way program. And there's an application process that these member agencies submit their request to United Way, who does the evaluation and determination of the distribution of those passes. And then the member agencies then work with their clients, if you will, to determine who should get passes to assist in their mobility needs. The United Way does not give passes to individuals. They give them to the member agencies. The member agencies give them to individuals. And then the member agencies report back to the United Way, then they consolidate, give us an annual report. I can tell you the program is oversubscribed, and through the years, we have gradually increased the number of day passes each year. It started at 4,000, then went to 5,000, and now it's at 7,500 per year. And they distribute these, I think their process, they do it twice a year. They give out half for the first half of the year and then second half. And then the member agencies use them. So I would say like one of the things they will do is, especially someone who just gets a job and needs transportation till they get that first paycheck, they'll provide them passes for that, or to visit other agencies or organizations as needed. In addition to the donation, depending on the United Way budget, from time to time, they do buy additional passes over and above that. And so this past year, they purchased an additional 2,800 bus passes on top of the donated passes. We do provide a 25% discount to the United Way to help with that program. And then they distribute those in the same manner as the other passes. So that the item before you tonight is whether or not you will approve the annual donation to the United Way. From a financial impact, a full fare day pass is $3.25. This time the youth fare is $0, so they don't buy any youth fare passes. So the value of 7,500 full fare day passes is $24,375. And staff is recommending that the board would approve this annual allocation of bus passes to the United Way for fiscal year 2025. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Director Holmstrom?
Yeah, thank you very much for that report. I pulled this and asked to be reported because I thought it merited more than just blowing by in the consent agenda. It really is, it's core to, I think, why we do what we do. There are 4 densely packed pages in our staff report, lots of stories. That is just a sampling of the things that we were able to do, or our services were able to provide for people through this donation. But it's not just through this donation, it's the fact that we operate our services, right? That these people were able to get to employment opportunities, to access housing, to meet their legal obligations, to meet medical appointments, all kinds of different things that are in here. It's really great just to take a scan through those stories. Great story to tell, I think, and to share with people in the community. So I really think, it just merited more than just going right back. I'm happy to vote yes on this. And, if there's any more we can do in the future, I think that would be great. Like, the board could take a look at that. Thank you.
Questions? Director Davidson?
This is not a question, this is a comment. Is now an okay time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Similar to Director Holmstrom, I just wanted to elevate one of these comments in the context of, as we think about the service that we provide and the value to the community. So this is from Sheltering Silverton. It mentioned that one of our clients used a bus pass in March to go to the DMV to get a new ID so he could enroll in a housing assistance program and complete a housing application. Now that would be noteworthy in and of itself, but then the second sentence is, he got his apartment last week, exclamation point. And so with our mission of creating community connections, quite literally, this program facilitated us executing on that mission, and this individual's life is significantly better for it.
Any additional comments or any other questions? Seeing none. Did we get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move the board approve an annual allocation of 7,500 day passes to United Way of Mid-Willamette Valley for fiscal year 2025.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Nope. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. So we've cleared our consent calendar, items deferred from consent calendar, action items. General Manager Pollock, will you please present on this?
Right, I'll ask our Chief Planning and Development Officer, Shofi Ulazun, to please come and present the staff report on the approval of funding for 5310 projects.
Good evening, President Inoz Presi and other Board of Directors. I'm presenting the funding recommendation for Section 5310 projects on behalf of the Chair of Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund Advisory Committee. Just to give you some background, district serves as the designated recipient of the FTS Section 5310 funds for the Salem-Keizer urbanized area. And the purpose of this Section 5310 fund is to enhance the mobility of the seniors and individuals with disabilities. As the designated recipient of these funds, district conducts a selection process to determine the use of the funds and to certify which projects are eligible based on the coordinated plan that this board adopted on March 2024. The application was open for 30 days, beginning from April 24, 2024 to May 24, 2024. Total available grant funding was $390,189. The solicitation was published in the Statesman's Journal beginning of April 24 for the whole 30 days solicitation period. And we have also posted the same solicitation on our webpage, both English and Spanish. During that 30 days period, we have only received application from Salem Area Mass Transit District, the total of the whole grant amount. The three applications as part of this STFAC 5310 funding was number one was Cherriots Mobility Management Call Centers, which is considered as traditional projects, and total requested amount is $206,800. And the second project was Cherriots Shop and Ride Purchased Services, which is as non-traditional category, and then $175,000 and $585,000 requests. And then third project was Cherriots Shop and Ride Preventative Maintenance, which is also considered as traditional category, and the request for this is $7,804. So the definition of traditional, basically any capital expenses to meet the special needs of the seniors and disabilities. Also, those funds should be used to directly benefit to the seniors and people with disabilities, and any mobility management expenses like call centers and mobility management expenses. And the definition of non-traditional expenses are any public transportation, capital, or operational projects that exceed the ADA requirements. And then another perspective is to improve access to the fixed shop service and also reduce the reliance on the paratransit service. So the requirement for this is we need to allocate 55% of the total available funding to the traditional projects and 45% of the available funding to the non-traditional projects. And district projects met those requirements. As of June 12, 2024, STFAC committee members met, and Salem Area Mass Transit District staff presented all three projects. And at the meeting, STFAC members unanimously equally prioritized all three projects since there was no other projects, and the request amount is exactly same as the total available funding. And all three of those projects are included in the district approved budget in the transportation services session. The recommendation is the STFAC recommends that the board adopt resolution number 2024-02 approving funding of the FY24 Section 5310 projects following the committee's recommendation and direct the general manager to submit the application for the Section 5310 grants in accordance with the recommendation. I'll be happy to take any question if you have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Director Laura Midkiff, any questions? No? Okay. Okay. Well, if there's no questions or comments, then I would like to entertain a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to put a motion forward. I move that the board adopt resolution number 2024-02, providing funding of the fiscal year 24 Section 5310 projects as recommended by the STFAC and direct the general manager to submit the application for the Section 5310 grants in accordance with the recommendation.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion? No? I think this just goes to show how thorough your report was. There's no questions. That's rare for this board. All those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so that would move us into item 11, information reports. There are none, and so we'll head on over to our general manager's report.
Thank you. I have several items, but I've been asked to perhaps give an update on Route 22. So specifically the open houses. So earlier this week, we held 2 open houses based on concerns we've received from community members who live on Alpha Street, the street we use to turn the buses around. Their concerns were the frequency of bus travel, the speed of bus travel, from, right now it runs from 6 in the morning till late in the evening at night, 7 days a week. And so we held open house because we were hearing concerns and we wanted to give all the members of the street a chance to weigh in on their concerns. So we held those open houses. We did hear from several people. They shared their concerns, provided data for us to take a look at. And so we've received it. We heard their concerns. Right now we have staff evaluating the concerns. And then shortly we'll make a decision whether to consider modifying the turnaround. Their request is to remove the buses from Alpha Street because of the frequency of travel on the buses and concern for community member safety, especially children who play frequently in the area. So we are evaluating that. We'll have a decision next week at the latest, and then based on that, we'll communicate that information to the residents that we have contact information to and take action. But I'd be happy to answer any question. I would note that Director Davison and Director Laura Midkiff were both in attendance, one at each of the sessions, who could hear feedback. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Director Laura Midkiff?
This isn't a question, but it's a comment that I made to the folks. It was a full house, but it was mostly Cherriots people who were there. I like that. That's good. We could hear the concerns that I made privately. And I'll make it publicly. I'm not going to comment on the Route 22 specific because it's in good hands. People are evaluating the feedback. But this raises questions for me around kind of how proactive we are in terms of these sorts of changes that do impact neighborhood streets, that are transforming them into kind of busier than they normally are. I think I'd like a conversation or, hear from staff what, down the line around what their thoughts are and being more proactive with that. I think it could have in this instance, not that it's anything, but it could have smoothed out some miscommunications, misunderstandings among residents, but also potential customers, potential riders. And I think especially with this, imminent development of the South Salem Transit Center, and there's going to be this dramatic change in routes, and having a more considered approach might be helpful to us, because not only does it create community connections and relationships and stuff with the public, but it also might, as I said, or I kind of alluded to just now, kind of promote ridership. It's going out to, I mean, I know that ODOT does this. They canvass in neighborhoods, and when there's a change to a curb cutout or whatever it may be. And so something like that, if capacity and time allow, is something I'd be interested in hearing about from staff and for us to talk about as the time is appropriate. But I really appreciate the staff who were there, Manager French, and I think Patricia was there too, I think. And people were there. They were really fielding folks' input very well and thoughtfully. And I thought it was very impassioned, but I thought a productive couple hours. Thank you for staff that was in attendance and for the public who came and gave their perspectives.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Director Davidson?
Yeah, I'll chime in. I have a lot of conflicting thoughts about both Alpha Street and then I think more broadly of how we engage with the community when we bring transit, either enhancements or new transit routes to their communities. I guess I'll place my cards on the table by saying that there's a tension here of listening to the community and listening to the loudest voices in the community, and the trade-offs of who happens to speak up or who happens to show up, and the others that don't, whether from apathy, agnostic belief, or whatever it is. I went on over to Alpha Street when I first saw this complaint come through, and I saw the bus go by, and it was not speeding. Now, of course, that's anecdote. It's anecdote versus anecdote at that point. But when the complaints I heard in the morning were specific around speed, which the staff had already addressed proactively. There's a implemented speed limit on that street to 15 miles an hour, which is 10 miles per hour slower than the posted speed limit. That's great. That's wonderful. That's in my mind more than addresses the problem. That's a significant reduction in speed. Speed, based on the layout of the street, is a common concern, but I don't think the entity to attribute the issue with is Cherriots. The street is 33 feet wide. There are 2 speed bumps on there. Obviously, this has been a persistent problem. The city has spent money there, but this is not new, this is not novel, and Cherriots is not the driver of this or even a contributor at this point by driving 15 miles an hour. I have some, the cynic in me will wonder, well, did they cry out when UPS or FedEx started doing more deliveries during the pandemic? And if they are like me, then I suspect that they will only get annoyed when FedEx doesn't go to their house, because the utility is obviously, well, they're bringing me a package. I think that is true of transit as well. The transit is a nuisance unless you use it, or unless you know someone who uses it. And I have serious misgivings about removing transit from a neighborhood, because that is my understanding. That would be the result of this, that a connection between different communities of South Salem would not be able to make a connection with the removal of this. And so I am encouraged by the dialogue that staff were able to engage in and the complaints that they were able to hear from the community. But from what I saw, Chariot staff were going above and beyond in addressing those concerns, particularly around speed. The frequency, I'm not too concerned about the frequency. I get rather sensitive when traffic violence is invoked, particularly around children, which was done in this case, and that is serious. I would much rather have my child on a street with professionals behind the wheel than a neighbor of mine who drives a far too big of truck. The sight lines are better on Cherriots vehicles. The individual behind the wheel is far more competent. And so, yeah, another concern that I'll just flag is that if we are going to quadruple transit, which is something that the City of Salem's Climate Action Plan calls for and something that I'm in whole support of, and recognizing that with the South Salem Transit Center, routes in South Salem will change, and hopefully we will have more buses of whatever size, whether it's a 40-foot bus or a cutaway vehicle, going into more streets like Alpha Street. So I am very concerned, and this is not my decision. I want to be very clear. This is not my decision. This is a decision that should be in the hands of professionals, and it is in the hands of professionals. But I have serious misgivings about us potentially ceding to vocal complaints when they're, in my mind, their concerns have been addressed specifically and directly, because we will face similar conversations with every community when we go to expand transit, when we bring transit to those communities. Whether it's South Salem, Northeast Salem, West Salem, any other part of Salem, certainly Kaiser, there are regions that are poorly served by our current transit. And when we bring transit to those communities, they will be upset. Some of them will be upset. The 16-year-old kid who for the first time can go play with his friends without mom chauffeuring him around, he's not gonna complain. Is he gonna show up to the open house? If he was a 16-year-old like me, he's not showing up. And so at this point, I'm ranting, but I just wanted to just share some of my concerns and thoughts and tensions that I have around this. I do want to, again, acknowledge the professionalism of Chariot staff with this. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
Do we have additional questions? Okay. I have a question. I don't know if we have this information currently, but I am wondering, like, what was the outreach done prior to the rollout of Route 22?
I would say it was probably, the outreach we did was more general and it was dated because it was a while ago, centered around South Salem, and it wasn't targeted to this particular location. We just, I may get it wrong, but we just promoted the actual route. And this is an invisible part of Route 22 because it's not really in service at this point in time. It's a turnaround portion of the route.
Okay. Yes. Director Laura Midkiff?
Thank you, President. I just wanted to clarify, first of all, I wanted to say I really appreciate Dr. Davidson's comments, and I totally agree with them. When I say doing outreach, I don't mean necessarily, can we put a route in your neighborhood? That's not what I mean. What I mean is, we're informing you this route is going into this neighborhood, and we'd like you to be aware of that, and let's promote. That's what I mean by that, just to clarify. Not that Ian was suggesting otherwise, but that was my intent with naming that, was to say, we can engage people early and specifically, where they live, and if they don't answer the door, we can leave information, we can invite them into the conversation, we can direct them to resources if they have questions or concerns, but this is our policy, this is the future of the city, here's what we're gonna do, and let's do this together. And I think in doing that, we can assuage preliminarily some concerns and promote people to get on our buses and help them be a part of a more equitable transit future. So I thank you, Director Davidson, for your comments.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm in total agreement. I think that's exactly right. And that is my biggest concern, is that we had this route planned, and so it definitely is, and we made a mistake, and one that hopefully we'll be able to correct in the future, because yes, to Director Davidson's point, we will be expanding, and that's exactly what we want, is for transit to be more accessible to everyone. And that definitely requires, in a city like ours, to have buses going into neighborhoods specifically so they're accessible, especially whenever it comes to our folks that need that kind of more door-to-door service, like the existence of our paratransit. And so this is one of those opportunities that we had, a missed opportunity in informing people ahead of time and doing that broad general information outreach as well. That is one of the reasons why I think I continuously bring up my concerns around our marketing outreach, especially when it does come into our service enhancement, that we are very, well, I think everyone here is very excitedly anticipating in a few years. But I do think that it is definitely correct that this team is very caring and intentional and immediately responded and reacted whenever someone said something was wrong and pulled out all the stops to be able to make that space to make sure that folks were heard.
I would say message received and understood. But there's also a good lesson here, because one of the things I may be afraid of we might have done in this case, even if we did all the outreach, we may have promoted the route, but the area of concern is not on the route. We may have, could have potentially even ignored it there, but this is a lesson learned to look at all the unintended pieces of a route. Is you're right, as we look at more micro transit options or smaller vehicles, when transit centers are built, if we go back to the model we're trying to build, it's using smaller vehicles in neighborhoods to bring people to the trunk lines. So, good lesson learned.
Director Carney?
Thank you, President Hinojosa Pressy. I think this is such a great conversation. And so Director Davidson, thank you for your comments. Director Laura Midkiff, thank you for your comments. I'm wondering about our not too long ago conversation with our Community Advisory Committee, and if this is a kind of place where they could help us think in the right direction. This is the kind of thing that, this is the place, this kind of community engagement and thinking through potential impacts to our community is one of the things that I would hope we could partner with them on. And I know we've had conversations and intend, I think, to have more with that group, but just kind of food for thought. And I think there's so much good and information that has been shared by our other directors and things that really jive with my experience, open houses as a way of reaching a very select, vocal and privileged subset of our community. Something like direct mail or canvassing as being something that's a little bit more equitable in terms of reaching people. And I think these are good kind of like micro lessons, mini lessons to bring along with us as we move towards greater service expansion, but really appreciate the thoughtful conversation.
Thank you very much. I think if there's no other questions or comments, we can continue with your report.
Great, thank you. So you do have in front of you this month's communication update on various activities and information. Did want to share with you today, this morning, we conducted our annual inventory. So the annual inventory is a year-end requirement, and we inventory all the parts in the maintenance shop. We bring in administrative folks and come in to help with that, and it went rather quickly, I think, today. It seemed to go pretty well. We'll find out the results shortly, but we're usually right on. We need that to close out our books. In addition, earlier today, the House Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Subcommittee did meet on the Federal Transportation Appropriations Bill for fiscal year 2025. I have not yet heard any results of how that markup went, but I can tell you there is concern because the House version of appropriations does not fully fund in alignment with the IIJA. It does also not have plus-ups like we've had for the last few years. The biggest cut to the bill is through the capital improvement grant funding process. We are not a recipient of that, so it does fully fund our formula funds, but does not include the plus up. It does include language to block the Rostentowski test, which is important for us. That's a requirement that could require a 25% cut across the board of transit formula funds, so it blocks that, so we're okay there. There is some policy language issues that the greater bill includes that are troubling, specifically around prohibiting actions on equity action plans and greenhouse gas emission measures. However, the Senate's version is more friendlier to transit, and they're not expected to hear their bill until July. And then ultimately, once both bills are passed through their respective houses, it goes to conference committee. We don't expect any of that to happen until after the election. So they're doing the early work, but we don't expect any final action until the lame duck session, if you will. So as we hear more about how the markup went, I will keep you posted. Earlier today, I held my annual monthly general managers roundtable, and there's a couple of items I talked about in there that I wanted to highlight here. First, I'd like to announce some promotions. We promoted 2 transit operators who were filling in as transportation leads. They are now transportation operations supervisors. Ron Bagar and Glenn Rominger have just both been recently promoted to operations supervisor. And maintenance supervisor Zach Leith has been promoted to maintenance manager, which is great news. Some great way to recognize good internal performance with promotions. And I talked about those operations promotions because Christy Tucker, an operations supervisor, is retiring tomorrow. And we'll be sending her off. And then next week, a long-term facility maintenance worker, Ruben Barboza, is retiring. So we wish both of them well in their next chapter of their lives. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. I don't know, Dr. Carney, do you want to say anything about Ruben's retirement?
Oh, just, I remember him from when I had the opportunity to work with Cherriots, and it certainly has been a long time, and he has been a wonderful addition to the staff throughout his years here. So I'm happy to see he's moving on to another chapter of his life. He will be missed.
Well, thank you very much for that report. That'll move us into our board of directors reports. I'm going to start online. Director Navarro, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, thank you, President Helmut Pressey. Sorry I can't make it in today. I'm playing uncle, so I got a house full of nephews that are that I'm trying to make sure they don't kill each other. But other than that, in Kaiser news, we have the splash fountain has opened up, and while it might not seem like something that we need right now in the crazy Oregon weather that's raining, next week is supposed to be in the 90s. So I just want to remind folks that the splash fountain will be open, and that is behind the Civic Center in Kaiser. In outside of Kaiser news, the Joint Transportation Committee has announced their roadshow, and so they'll be traveling around Oregon to get input, which is a good sign. That usually means that there's going to be a transportation package that will be a priority in the 2025 legislative session. The nearest site that they'll be hosting or at least they have a proposed date that they'll be hosting one of those events, will be on Tuesday, July 16th in Albany. So if folks are interested, that's a good opportunity to voice your support or concerns or comments about improving transit infrastructure here in the state. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Director Navarro. Now I'll start over here with Director Laura Midkiff.
Sure, thank you. No WSBA updates. I haven't received an invitation to the business in a while. I hope they're well. Business seems to be doing well in West Salem. I did go to the most recent neighborhood association, West Salem Neighborhood Association. I bring it up to say that there was a very rich and long conversation around transit and planning and housing there, and then we got a lot of input from folks who are very interested in having conversations around how to ensure, with all the developments that are going in, and there's a slate of them recently that was announced, kind of new developments, how we're meeting those transit needs, and I couldn't agree more. And so I just thought I would bring that up for all of us here to know that those are community conversations that are happening and will mature, I'm sure, in the months and years ahead. Our valiant leader, Chair Duncan, is not here, but so in her stead, I will give the DEI subcommittee update. There are two things to highlight. I'm going to go in reverse order that is directed for me to go in here on this paper. But the first is that the Immigrant Heritage History Month wrap is forthcoming, though I think it was Director Feeney told me at the open house that it's delayed a little bit. So instead of appearing in this month, it'll appear in July sometime. Do we know what day, Patricia?
We were told the 1st of July.
Oh.
But we'll keep you posted as
Okay.
that goes. Just a quick note, the vendor that we typically used is no longer local. The production work is actually done in South Carolina, so we're getting used to them, they're getting used to us. I don't think that we're going to have a delay for the September one. It should be absolutely spot on.
Thank you. So that it's beautiful. I appreciate the staff's patience with the back and forth. There was quite a bit of back and forth on this one in terms of design elements and appearance and all this stuff. But when it comes up, maybe as early as Monday, it'll be beautiful. And I thank everyone for their efforts in that. The second update is regarding Tri-Transit Week coming up in September. We are talking about getting folks who are elected leaders involved in this kind of public awareness campaign around the Tri-Transit Week, and we're planning to make that a success and to do some kind of short form video media blitz. Think of Maria's TikTok obsessions and seeing something like that.
Obsessions?
Well, okay. It's brought up frequently.
That's a strong word.
Okay, well, anyways.
Fixation,
call it what
perhaps?
you like.
That's still a strong word.
Anyways, so I think part of the hope is that members of the board reach out to contacts in the community of elected leaders, see if they're interested in participating in that. So there may be some details forthcoming about that, but that's something to look forward to in September. So I think with that, I'll conclude my member remarks.
Thank you. I should have cut you off before you started talking about obsessions. Director Holmstrom?
Thank you very much. This month, the Regional Rail Advisory Board had their first meeting. It was on June the 6th. Unfortunately, that's also my son's birthday, so I was not able to attend this time, and hopefully I will make future meetings, no problem. I understand Director Davidson was able to attend in his other capacity, and so I'm sure he'll give an update to the board here in a moment. So I apologize for that.
What? Kids' birthdays are important?
Well, I wasn't able to skip this time, just, yeah, so I turned 7.
Shout out to my
So,
niece who turned
yeah.
17 today.
And he had a good birthday, so it all worked out. The Community Advisory Committee met last week on Tuesday, and unfortunately I was a little bit late to that one. I was coming up on Amtrak from Eugene, and a little bit later than scheduled, but I still made the end part of the meeting. So they received a similar, I think, maybe modified presentation from our safety and security staff that we received. We received something at our work session. The Community Advisory Committee meeting also received a presentation on that and had some good discussion around that, at least the part that I saw. So I think that is all I have for this month. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Holmstrom. And I'll pass it over to Director Carney.
Thank you, President Hinojosa Pressy. Let's see, I attended our SCATS Policy Committee meeting earlier this week on the 25th. It was a great meeting. We talked about the federal fiscal year 2025-23 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Plan development schedule, how SCATS works with ODOT and other partners to develop it, the timeline for adoption, which, spoiler alert, we hope to adopt in May 2026, so right around the corner. Just the kind of projects that make it into our transportation improvement plan as an MPO. Transit is a contributor to those projects, as are Salem and Kaiser and Marion County and Polk County and Turner and soon Almsville. Or maybe even currently Almsville, but as part of Marion County until they have a voting seat. I don't believe that they are allowed to submit projects that are evaluated by their own planning bodies. I think that's right. If somebody knows more about that little slice of MPO world, please chime in. We also talked at significant length about, what was it? It was a resolution, I think, is what we passed, and I should, if I still had my packet open, I'd be able to articulate the actual words of the resolution a bit more clearly. But in January of 2023, in the face of skyrocketing construction costs and like crazy out of this world staffing shortfalls, budgets for transportation projects that were in the TIP, that we had already planned and adopted into the TIP, were just like going through the roof. And so these project applicants were having to come back and say, we know we budgeted it for $1.75 million, but now it's 3.5. And we'd be like, whoa, we'd be searching our pockets, we'd be trying to find the money, and we would find the money. But this just kept happening again and again and again, to the point that we said, wait a second, this is happening every single time. What if we just passed a motion that said, when these project applicants come to us hat in hand and say, we ran out of money because of, insert factors that I've already referred to, we're just going to do it. We're just going to give them the money. We're going to make these projects whole because they're already in the TIP. They've already been started. If we didn't finish them, well, we wouldn't finish them, and that would be bad because there's community expectations. We've already put money into them. Let's just pass this resolution. And so we did. And then like a couple months later, I was like, but forever should we do that? Because isn't this a moment in time? And like, don't we hope inflation stops going up like this? And that, jobs are able to be like fully staffed and that project costs come into control so that we don't have to just like keep forking over money to get these already in process projects out the door. So that came up again because we are discussing it again. It is a resolution that we are revisiting. And so there's two questions, and we're going to continue this conversation. To my mind, there are two questions in this. One is the question, and I got to open the packet now because here it is. Why would I have closed anything off my desktop? It's still right here. Let me find the precise language. So the first question is, should we, as the policy committee, and I'm really looking to my fellow board members for guidance here. The first sentence reads, make completing projects in the transportation improvement plan a priority over adding new projects to the TIP. So when we are in a funding situation like we were when we adopted our last TIP, we said, we've got so many budgets increasing on these projects that are already in the TIP, we're not going to add any. No new projects. And that could happen again in the foreseeable future because there's a desire by the policy committee and the technical advisory committee to establish a reserve fund, which we don't have right now, to sort of help address some of these funding shortfall things. So we're not just budgeting right out to the last dollar, we've got a reserve bucket. But in establishing the reserve bucket, we might be in a no new projects scenario again. So now what are these tips good for? 5 years. So now we've got 2 consecutive tips with no new projects added. And we've got projects that are on the tip because we added them 6 years ago. And, right? And then like those projects were added to their local transportation system plans whenever those were last updated, 2007, 2009, I think is when Kaiser last updated theirs. Salem is more recent, or no, not quite recent, but they'll be doing theirs soon because of the comprehensive plan update. So the question is, should it be the practice of the policy committee, or should it be our board's stance on that policy committee that we should say, come what may, if it's on the tip, that's our priority. We're going to complete those projects. And then the second part of the question, wait until you hear this sentence, this is what we adopted as a committee. Commit to adding funds to projects as they are requested and delaying projects and or project phases if additional funds are needed, as long as project sponsors have shown they have considered reasonable cost reduction options and a commitment to timely project delivery before requesting additional funding. Do you guys follow that? Because we had a hard time in the policy committee sort of like parsing out exactly what it meant. But I think my first question still stands. Number one, should we make completing funding of projects that are in the TIP a priority over all else? And then further, what should be the policy around extending additional funding to projects as that funding is requested? And I think the TAC, and thank you, Shofi, for your representation on the TAC, had some really great and robust conversation and some helpful suggestions for SCAT staff, but that will ultimately come, I believe, to the policy committee to decide about how a project develops a contingency fund or contingency percentage, and how they go about like mitigating risk in the project. And for a larger organization used to handling, larger sums of money, like the city of Salem, like the transit district, that might kind of be the kind of thing we do by road, or maybe even do it in our sleep, right? Like ODOT does those all day long. But does Turner, does Amsville, do they know how to do them? And is there any like check or balance or rigor? Is anybody hold that to a standard? I don't know. Those weren't questions that SCAT staff answered real directly in the meeting. But so maybe back to my first question, do we believe that the SCAT's policy committee should make it the standard in their funding that we complete projects that are in the transportation improvement plan before adding anything new? I'm sorry, I don't know if it's like cool to just ask a question like that. We can bring it up at another meeting, but these just keep happening every month, so I'm just looking for help.
Director Davidson?
One question before I weigh in. I know transit goes through the TIP, but we kind of have our own dedicated funding stream. And so
Correct.
are we, under the current schema, are we impacted? Presumably, if we find our own money and it goes into the TIP, we're not being deprioritized, right?
No, we wouldn't be deprioritized, and you're right, it is a different fund. So this is, and Shofi, feel free to chime in whenever I go real far off into the weeds over there. The SCATS has I think they're, what do they call it? It's not their general fund, or maybe it is. That's what we have. But they have kind of the pot of funds that they get that's available to everyone. And we have our own funds typically that come in. So when I look at tip adjustments that come in through transit, you know, the impact to SCATs, and here I can dig up the name here in just a second. The impact to the SCATs, come on, fund is typically 0. You know, it's just we have to do it to get the ledger to balance at the end for all the money coming in. We've got to add it. It's the, okay, I might need help with this word if anybody knows which one it is. It's the SCAT's discretionary funds. So that's what is kind of at hand with the extension of additional funding is the SCAT's discretionary funding. So here you can see where ODOT has a project, and they are the sponsor, and they are getting a bunch of federal money, and the SCAT's discretionary funds before and after is like a 0-0 impact.
Got it.
But we're adding it to the tip, because that money's still gonna come through this MPO.
Yeah. One other question. So you all adopted a new safety framework to evaluate projects, right?
A while ago,
Like
yeah.
a year ago? Yeah.
We changed the definition and weighting of what will be considered.
Will be, so it's not retroactive.
No, it isn't retroactive.
For that reason alone, my preference would be, I mean, priorities change. I think that's especially true with transportation projects. If we're privileging projects who did not prioritize safety in the way that you all currently think is important, I don't know, reviewing them in my mind doesn't seem bad.
I mean, to my mind, what we limit by keeping this in place is the ability for people who follow us years from, what if we're never able to add another project to the tip because is the ability for future decision makers that are in those seats to say, hey, wait a second, I don't want to fund all of these projects. Our priorities have totally changed. Maybe we had a Cascadia subduction earthquake and, a religious awakening, and we had to, now we're reconsidering everything, and we don't want these. I don't know that it's entirely necessary. I do think what it enables, and I'm happy about this, is us to have a conversation about how we do extend funds. And the rubric by which we do so, and how we consider that moving forward. And I think the contingency funding conversation and the reserves conversation is important and good. But the blanket of we're just gonna say yes as long as it's on the tip gives me pause, because I think it would strip the person who follows me on that committee from the board from dissenting, having a different opinion. And that was really the highlights. Sorry, I took a lot of time on that. Thank you for bearing with me. And if others have thoughts, feel free to share them here. This is just my board member report. Feel free to connect with me afterwards. And thank you for the privilege of representing this group on that body. They are important conversations, I think. End of report.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to Director Davidson. I hope yours is as detailed.
I will do my level best. Thank you, President. So I can't remember if this happened since our last meeting or if it was before and I just failed to report on it, but Marion County, their planning and engineering team, they reached out to some individuals in my neighborhood. So I live in unincorporated Marion County, the portions that are within the Salem urbanized area but are not within the city of Salem. And so Marion County, Salem, and Kaiser, they're engaged in regional scenario planning, and they reached out to myself and the chair of the neighborhood association to kind of talk about what they're thinking for implementation of the climate-friendly, equitable communities rule, administrative rules. And so, anyways, the only thing I wanted to pass along is that they are tentatively planning on identifying their climate-friendly areas as around the intersection of Silverton and Lancaster. So, you know, where that Safeway is, I think 3 gas stations. And anyways, I encourage them to move a little north and east if they could. The closer that they could get to Chemeketa Community College, in my mind, the better, because that's both a high ridership area. It's a area where a lot of people could benefit from good transit and communities that use transit more. And also perhaps a Northeast Transit Center might wind up in that location. I also just want, I didn't mention this to them, but I want to flag for our benefit that the city of Salem's is spending quite a bit of money upgrading Silverton Road to have buffered bike lanes on almost the whole length of it, all the way out of city limits or to the end of city limits. And so as we're thinking about multimodal connections, that Silverton, Lancaster may be a hub for a lot of things. So in terms of council governments, we met earlier this month. We approved the budget. One thing that was, there are division reports in all of these board meetings, and the transportation division flagged that there is a funding opportunity called FLAP, the Federal Lands Access Program, which caught my eye.
Well, with a name like that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're maybe good at acronyms, remains to be seen. So the Federal Lands Access Program is, it's a Federal Highway Administration fund, and right now it appears to be closed to us in Oregon, but anyways, long story short, this is focused on improving transportation to federal lands. And I recently learned that Cascade East, the public transit provider in Central Oregon, they actually applied for and received Federal Lands Access Program funding, and they now operate a couple services, or I think they just fund one, which is summer routes to Mount Bachelor. They make a few stops in between as well to Wanogwa and Swampy Lakes, which to me doesn't sound like an appealing location, but hey. And then Dutchman Flat. But anyways, their shuttle carries a 20 bike trailer. Ooh. And so apparently these destinations are big mountain biking destinations in the summer. And so I know I've advocated in the past for something like a Trailhead Direct or a transit to trails type service. The question has always been, okay, but how do we fund it, especially if it's outside the urban growth boundary? And so this seems like a funding opportunity that could fit that. Perhaps we won't have an opportunity to apply for it for a couple of years, but wanted to flag that, so it's FLAP. Yeah.
Flap.
FLAP. As learning about this, the San Am Canyon has quite a few federal lands, and Headwaters Restoration, I think that's what they're called. But it's a group that is really keen on activating the San Am Canyon for recreation, bringing more dollars there. In fact, tonight they're having an open house at Venti's. But the Statesman Journal ran an article about it. So that may be an entity that we would want to connect with as we think about potentially applying for funds. They could be a good partner in that. In a somewhat similar vein, I was in Turner Saturday. I went to Turner City Park, which abuts Mill Creek, and my kids just kind of floated the creek up and down. And then another service that Bend does is they actually have a Ride the River shuttle. I don't know how it's funded, but obviously the Deschutes is quite a bit bigger than the Mill Creek. But for $4 a day, you can get an all-day pass, bring your own tube and then you just throw it on the back, I guess, of this trailer again. CET appears to have just a lot of trailers, and you can go up and down the river. And so as we think about the value that Cherriots provides, I think we should consider whimsy a little bit, and joy. And for me, seeing my kids ride up and down Mill Creek in an inner tube was perhaps a perfect encapsulation of whimsy and joy. And so to the extent that we can provide services that allow people to experience that as well, I think that'd be great. There are some obvious logistical challenges. There are, for example, dams and bridges with low crossings on Mill Creek. But yeah, just wanted to flag that. And I think, oh no, Regional Rail. So as Director Holmstrom mentioned, the Willamette Valley Regional Rail Advisory Group met earlier this month. Not a whole lot to report in terms of like deliverables. This was the start of what will almost certainly be a very long conversation on what it will look like connecting our two metropolitan regions. So connecting the Portland region to the Mid-Valley region through means other than a freeway. And the takeaway I had from that conversation was that we perhaps need to widen the scope a little and take a step back. And so in transportation planning, that may mean considering options that I might dismiss out of hand, but for very sensible planning reasons or financial considerations we should take into consideration. And so you will often see transportation plans study a whole bunch of different things and then very pointedly identify, well, you can't actually run a ferry from Salem to Portland because the Willamette Falls is present. And, but doing the due diligence is worthwhile. And I think what I heard was that there is not a universal desire to just put all our eggs in the basket on WES, in particular, the old Oregon Electric line, that we should study other corridors. And perhaps this results in express buses connecting Salem to Portland initially with rail service later. But it is a conversation that will continue. It may yet take some time, but yeah. So that, I guess, is my report.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'll go last. I'll make it fast. I was able to represent Cherriots at the Adelante Oregon event that we had this month. It was a gathering of Latina leaders in the CD6 area with Congresswoman Andrea Salinas, and there was I participated in the first of like the 3 events, which was around basic needs in the area. And there was a lot of discussion, of course, on housing. And so I made sure to highlight the needs for transportation investment alongside those housing needs. I was channeling someone that I know that mentioned the need, how there's a lot of conversation around housing, but there's not unnecessarily a conversation around how people are going to be able to get from point A to point B. And I mean, it really resonated with folks in the room, but I do think that we'll need to continue our advocacy just to keep this top of mind on our legislators and decision makers. And then some not so good news, as RJ mentioned around like temperatures are going up. I also want to note that COVID is also going up. So as folks are trying to stay indoors and stay cool, just be mindful that COVID's still around, and please stay safe, don't get sick. And the very last thing that I would like to say is, we are wrapping up Pride Month, and as of last week, we have seen over 527 anti-LGBTQIA2S+ bills in this country. As a member of this community, I do want to remind everyone that there are no federal protections for this community, and there continues to be direct attacks on them. And I want to make sure that we are also constantly uplifting this issue and protecting our siblings in this community. And with that, that concludes my report. And it is now 6:49 p.m. and we are adjourned. Oregon Just Transition Alliance.